Yes! Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist. Today I've got two special guests here on the show. A lot of you guys may or may not know what goes on behind the scenes of The Completionist, but these two guys right here save my life each and every week. Here on the show is Brett Bayonne.
Hi.
Brett is one of our executive producers of The Completionist, and this is Michael Santel.
Hi!
Michael Santel is one of our production coordinators and is the office manager, but more importantly, they are the team behind our fifth and brand new channel in the TOVG lineup.
Yeah, together we're known as the Super Couch Fighters, and we play fighting games here as part of the TOVG family.
That's right. So today on The Completionist, we're going to be taking Jirard down one of the most iconic fighting games of all time. Say it with me.
Street Fighter 2.
You were playing Street Fighter 2?
What did you say?
I played Shaq Fu.
Ryu's not even in Shaq Fu.
Yeah, but Shaq's in Shaq Fu.
You've been playing Shaq Fu this whole time?
He has like a Hadoken, but it's a ball.
That explains so much about you.
It's like Space Jam with magic. It's like Space Jam with magic.
That actually sounds tight.
After the lackluster popularity of the original Street Fighter back in 1987, Capcom decided to go with something a little different for their next big release. What they ended up releasing was the hit arcade brawler Final Fight, and due to the game's massive popularity, a follow-up was inevitable. But when Capcom tasked producer Yoshiki Okamoto with helming the project, he decided that he'd rather spend the company's time and money on creating a sequel to Street Fighter. Fortunately for everyone involved, when Street Fighter 2 was finally released in 1991, it went on to become the most popular fighting game of all time.
Praised for its rock-solid fundamentals and its many innovations, including the invention of combos and it being the first fighting game to allow player versus player combat, Street Fighter 2 would eventually lead to the arcade renaissance of the 1990s. It would also spawn cartoon series, toys, and even a couple of live-action movies.
Quick! Change the channel!
But the game would go through many revisions during its lifespan. Street Fighter 2 was quickly followed up by Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, which led to Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which was followed by Super Street Fighter 2, which finally led to the definitive version of the game in 1994, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
This version of the game provides the most complete Street Fighter 2 experience available and is still played competitively to this day. We're actually going to be playing the game by way of Street Fighter Anniversary Collection for the PS2, which is an anthology that slaps both Street Fighter 3 Third Strike and Hyper Street Fighter 2 on one disc.
But no need for confusion. Hyper Street Fighter 2 is just a version of the game that allows you to pick different versions of characters from throughout Street Fighter 2 history. But since we're specifically covering Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, we're going to be sticking to those versions of the characters.
Now this is, without a doubt, the granddaddy of all fighting games. It would be easy to just take its Steam status for granted and go home. But that's not good enough for me. I'm not going home.
Now, who wants to go home? And who wants to go with me?
I'm not playing HD Remix either. It's not real.
Perfect.
The Street Fighter story can be a bit confusing since it includes all kinds of retcons and is told completely out of order. To make matters worse, Street Fighter 2 doesn't have any story mode to speak of. This is an old school fighting game after all, which means that the only bits of narrative that we have available are the brief ending cutscenes you see when you beat the game with a character and the pseudo-official information we get from Capcom themselves.
What we do know is that the story of Street Fighter 2 takes place after two other games in the franchise, the original Street Fighter and the Street Fighter Alpha series. As for what happened in the original Street Fighter, all you need to know is that Ryu won his final match against Sagat in the World Martial Arts Tournament. Things get a bit more hectic in Street Fighter Alpha, which details the rise of the criminal organization known as Shadaloo.
These guys get their scummy hands in everything from illegal arms trading to human trafficking, and they're led by the nefarious M. Bison, or Vega if you're from Japan. You know what? We're just gonna call him Dictator. That way there's no more confusion. This guy's Dictator, this guy's Boxer, this guy's Claw. Cool? Cool.
Dictator has got his very own giant space laser called a Psycho Drive, and some of the more heroic characters in Street Fighter Alpha aren't too cool with that, so they work together to take him out of the picture. The problem is, Dictator tends to think ahead, and he's created a bunch of extra clone bodies to transfer his mind into, just in case he happens to die.
And here's where Street Fighter 2 finally comes in. Dictator's back with a brand new body, and he's looking to take over the world once again. He organizes another World Martial Arts tournament to draw all the strongest fighters out into the open, so that they can be brainwashed into Dictator's personal army. I guess if you can't beat them, indoctrinate them.
With the stage set, the World Warriors have all gathered to participate in the tournament, each for their very own reasons. Basically, it breaks down like this. Guile, Chun-Li, T-Hawk, and Cammay all want to bring Dictator to justice. Zangief, Dee Jay, Fei Long, and E Honda all want to prove themselves somehow. Ken wants to beat Ryu wants to beat everybody, Blanca's green, and Dalsum needs money for his poor village. Rounding out the cast is Dictator's personal crew of flunkies, Boxer, Claw, and Sagat.
Honestly, the story is virtually non-existent in Street Fighter 2, but in a game that's so incredibly well done in every other way, it almost doesn't matter. Tiny elements of narrative still manage to shine through in subtle ways in Street Fighter 2. But one still wonders, can the evil Dictator be stopped? Well, considering that he's got a healthy amount of clone bodies ready to go, I'd say no. No, he can't be. But hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Just about every aspect of Street Fighter 2's presentation is iconic. Almost all of its characters, stages, musical themes, and special moves have gone on to become touchstones in video game culture. Even if you've never played Street Fighter before, if you saw someone put their hands together, thrust them forward, and yell, "Hadouken! Hadouken!" you'd probably recognize it. But these aspects of the game aren't memorable because of how popular Street Fighter 2 was. Quite the opposite. Street Fighter 2 became a worldwide phenomenon due to how memorable, likable, and fresh its artistic direction was.
Now, the game's visuals can't be considered of the highest quality if you judge them by today's standards, but back in 1994, these character models and animations were considered silky smooth. The character designs in Street Fighter 2 set the bar pretty high when it comes to both memorability and unapologetic cultural stereotypes. Yes, the Indian character practices yoga and is a weirdo mystic dude. Yes, the American character is a thick-headed muscle man in the Air Force. And yes, the Russian character is a vodka-swilling Cold War throwback. No, these types of designs would never fly today, but love them or hate them, they were an integral part in making the cast of Street Fighter 2 unforgettable to anyone who came across the game.
Since there were no cutscenes or extensive details on the personal backgrounds of these characters, anything that helped you understand what someone like Guile was all about, like his conveniently placed American flag tattoos, helped players make connections with characters that they picked. Every stage being tied to one specific character also helps immensely in making these connections. When that cage slams down on Claw's stage, you get a glimpse of exactly what kind of psycho matador you're about to go up against. The stages are also vibrant, detailed, and memorable. I'm pretty sure the fact that every Street Fighter game has had a bustling Chinese street stage is due to just how well Chun-Li's original stage was. Can't mess with a classic.
The music that accompanies these stages are just so well constructed. In addition to sounding dope, they also help shine a little light onto the nature of whatever character they represent. The same can even be said about the game's sound effects. Nothing else in the game sounds like Blanca's electricity. That shit's one of a kind, baby.
Street Fighter 2's presentation is all about bringing its characters and settings to life, and it more than succeeds at that. The fact that so many of its features are so fondly remembered today are a testament to that. But as much as its presentation helped to ensure its legacy, it's Street Fighter 2's gameplay that made it the incredible success that it is today.
The gameplay in Street Fighter 2 is solid all the way through. Every character follows the same set of general mechanical rules, but they're all also different and balanced enough to provide a rich gameplay experience. Even though Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo is the latest iteration of Street Fighter 2, the differences between each of the versions is mostly relegated to under-the-hood tweaks and alterations.
Street Fighter 2 popularized the now commonplace 6-button fighting scheme, which includes 3 punches and 3 kicks. These punches and kicks each come in light, medium, and heavy variations. In general, light attacks do least damage, but activate and recover the quickest. Conversely, heavier attacks deal the most damage, but take the most time to start up and leave you open for the longest time.
This general risk-reward system is at the core of Street Fighter II's gameplay. Everything has both pros and cons. This philosophy is present in other aspects of the gameplay too. For example, blocking is a pretty safe thing to do in most cases, but it leaves you wide open to throws. If your opponent is preparing to throw you, then hitting them first is a pretty good idea. But of course, if you're gonna hit your foe, then they can always block you. See, this rock, paper, scissors-like relationship ensures that every option in the game has something that beats it, as long as you know when and where to apply it.
The characters in Street Fighter 2 have all kinds of attacks at their disposal. You've got your normal moves, which are performed by simply pressing a button, and many characters come equipped with command normals, which are performed by pressing a button along with a single direction on the D-pad. For example, pressing forward and medium punch at the same time with Ryu will perform his 2-hit overhead attack known as the collarbone breaker. No turtling for you.
Then you've got your special moves. These things require more complex motions with the D-pad, followed by the press of a button. Things like Shoryuken, Sonic Booms, and spinning pile drivers fall into this category. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo is also the first game in the franchise to introduce super combos into the mix. You gain super meter by making contact with your opponent and performing special moves. If your meter's full, you can unleash a super combo onto your opponent's face for massive damage. Your super meter doesn't carry over between rounds though, so it's best to use it while you can. These super combos require pretty complex joystick motions to pull off, so don't feel bad if you can't do it perfectly at first.
Super time, baby, let's go!
The Barbadukes! The Barbadukes, you're not gonna hit me. You're not gonna hit me. Go. Do double quarter circle forward and a punch.
I know how to do it.
Just do it then.
I know how to do it.
Do it. Do it.
I'm doing it. Okay.
You're not doing it.
Yeah!
Oh, it missed. You get punished. Oh, you still won.
There are a ton of playstyles to choose from across the 16 playable characters. You've got characters that excel at rushing their opponents down, like Fei Long and Cammay, characters that are good at zoning people out, like Dhalsim and Claw, characters who want nothing more than to hug their foes to death with command grabs, like Zangief and T-Hawk, and even middle-of-the-road fighters like Ryu and Dee Jay.
Street Fighter 2's arcade mode is a simulation of what it's like to play against the computer at an arcade. After picking your character, you go up against 8 randomly selected members of the cast, but your final 4 fights are against the same 4 predetermined boss characters: Boxer, Claw, Sagat, and finally the old Dictator himself. In typical arcade fashion, if you manage to beat Dictator, you'll be rewarded with a brief cutscene that details what's become of your selected fighter at the end of the tournament. Simple enough, right?
But it's the game's versus mode that's kept Street Fighter 2 alive and kicking to this day. You pick your character, your friend picks their character, and the two of you go at it. Probably for hours. No, seriously, while completing this game, there were many times when we got sidetracked by just playing each other in versus mode for extended periods of time. It's that addictive, and for good reason too. The game may be pretty easy to pick up and play, but it takes years to master. You may think that you understand a character fully after playing with them for a few hours, but truly mastering all of their capabilities is something that even the most dedicated players sometimes fail to do. And that's okay, because what this game does best is encourage you to play just one more game.
The fighting game fundamentals that were innovated by Street Fighter 2 and that led to countless sequels, spin-offs, and crossovers are all present and accounted for right here in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It just goes to show that as long as your gameplay is balanced and deep, people can play it for a long, long time. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go play more versus mode.
Hey, no! We gotta finish the review.
What?
We're finishing the review first, then we'll play.
All right.
If you manage to defeat all 8 of your opponents in the tournament, as well as Dictator's trio of bodyguards, you'll earn the right to go up against the big man himself. Taking place in what appears to be a Thai temple, complete with monks and tourists, your final battle is going to be a tough one.
Dictator is a surprisingly agile fighter for somebody who's supposed to be the leader of an international crime cartel. He's got a very floaty jump, and most of his specials grant him increased mobility. He can apply tons of annoying pressure with his scissor kicks, and can approach you ambiguously from the air by mixing it up between his head stomp move and his devil reverse. In short, this guy goes where the he wants to go, and does whatever the he wants to do.
but he doesn't have many options if you manage to knock him down and stay on top of him. Keeping his butt in the corner and firmly planted on the ground, thereby removing his mobility, is the shortest path to victory. Despite his many cloned bodies, he's just a man, and with some practice, you'll bop him for sure.
Every character has their own brief cutscene after you beat the game with them, as well as a cool piece of artwork featuring that character. There are 16 characters total, so let's get this over with. Ryu ditches the award ceremony to continue being a hobo who looks for fights. Ken marries his sweetheart Eliza. Chun-Li pays her respect at her father's grave and actually has a choice between beating people up as a detective and beating people up as a quote-unquote normal girl. Guile spares Dictator to go home and be a family man. Dalcium rides an elephant to go hang out with his wife and kid. Zangief celebrates by doing the Russian dance with Mikhail Gorbachev. Blanca's reunited with his mommy. Honda gets a bite to eat with his homies. And Cammay learns the true nature of the Dictator's feelings for her. Spoiler, he's crushing on her hard, bro. Fei Long turns down another movie deal to train because you know he's Bruce Lee basically. Dee Jay becomes a pop star, and T-Hawk returns to his homeland and swears to rebuild it. Boxer surrounds himself with money and floozies, Claw celebrates by worshipping himself, Sagat further obsesses over beating Ryu, and Dictator actually manages to take over the world. Whew. Is that it? Yeah? Can I go home? No? Oh.
Now, there's really no telling which of these endings are canon and which aren't, since they contradict each other left and right. And even though we've seen what happens to these characters later on in their storyline thanks to games like Street Fighter 4, we still don't know for sure what actually went down in this game. But we can count on one thing. Ryu is still out there somewhere, being a homeless man, looking to get into violent altercations with strangers around the world. What a hero!
Okay, as it turns out, there is one thing we can be completely sure of that happens in Street Fighter 2 canon. Dictator actually does die at the hands of Akuma, the enigmatic warrior that shares a fighting style with Ken and Ryu. Not only that, but you can also fight this guy instead of Dictator as your final opponent in arcade mode.
If you beat arcade mode without losing a single round and manage to get at least 4 perfects before you reach the final match, then Akuma will interrupt your fight with Dictator by murdering him with his signature Shangoku Satsu, a move which is said to actually murder the victim's soul in addition to their body. Damn, that's cold.
Or at least that's what the internet wants you to think. In this version of the game, all you have to do is not use a continue and win 4 fights using supers. Doing so will prompt Akuma to appear.
Akuma shares his moveset with Ken and Ryu, with a few exceptions, of course. He can throw a double fireball while airborne, he has a teleport, and he's generally broken as balls. Seriously, this guy is fast, he hits like a damn truck, and he generally couldn't care less about the rules of the game. But if you do manage to defeat him somehow, you'll get the same ending that you would get if you beat the game normally.
Once again, the internet strikes back. Actually, if you defeat Akuma, you get a special title sequence that showcases every ending in the game. And at the end, you get this weird screen with Akuma. Here's a bonus, Akuma is also able to be selected at the character select screen. To do so, highlight Ryu for about 3 seconds. Then move over to T-Hawk and wait for 3 more seconds. Move over to Guile, wait, then down to Cammay, wait again, then over to Ken, and finally up to Ryu again. Wait a few more seconds, then press start and all 3 punches. Man, shoutouts to old school video game codes. Boom, baby. Now you can play as one of the most broken characters in fighting game history.
Seriously, this guy was not meant for balanced competitive play, so use him with caution against any friends you intend on keeping. But against the computer, go nuts. Go bananas. Don't nobody care about the feelings of no damn machines.
Akuma doesn't have an ending cutscene like the rest of the characters, but beating the game with him does reward you with the version of the game's credits that features the broken and busted up portraits of the rest of the cast whom Akuma has undoubtedly murdered. Hooray! You're a murderer!
Street Fighter 2 isn't exactly a hard game, but it's not easy either. Its difficulty is highly dependent on just how familiar you are with fighting games in general. The AI in arcade mode can be a bit grueling, but it's nothing compared to how adaptable and dynamic a human being can be in versus mode. Playing against another person can be one of the toughest and most frustrating gaming experiences imaginable if you don't have much patience.
There's no denying that fighting games have a steep learning curve, and Street Fighter 2 is no exception. But once you accept that there's a lot to learn and start looking forward to learning it, things get really fun really fast. You're gonna have to take a good amount of losses before you start pulling in regular victories, but if you still have fun while you lose, then you're golden.
Ultimately, Hyper Street Fighter 2, or in this case, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, provides hours of fun if you've got someone else to play with. There's always something more to learn, and witnessing yourself go from soft boy to buff boy is a pretty damn good experience. Hashtag buff boys. Buy the f***ing shirt.
There's so many F-bombs in this episode.
I know. I'm leaving it. I'm leaving them in. Leave this in. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo has still got what it takes to be considered one of the greatest fighting games of all time. It may be tough, but it's deep, engaging, and fun.
Yeah, and even today, it's still considered one of the most relevant and important fighting games in video game history. And even if you've never played Street Fighter 2 before, if you've got some friends, you're bound to have a really good time.
Akuma is a pain in the ass, yes, that's true. But as each game goes on, you'll see that he becomes more and more part of the Street Fighter family. While there isn't really a completionist bonus for playing him, he's super fun to unlock, he's super fun to play against the computer, and he's super fun to beat up your friends with.
So, with that in mind, guys, we give this game our completionist rating of Finish It!
Finish it!
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And hey, if you liked Brett and Santel, be sure to show your love to them and check out their channel over at Super Couch Fighters. I myself will be making a few appearances over there, especially as I train on my road to EVO. Also, if you missed last week's episode, give it a click right here. It was on Minecraft. Now back to us. Man, I need to look better. I'm letting myself go. That's all the time we've got for today, guys. So please, as always, let us know what you thought about today's episode somewhere on the internet. Big shout outs to my crew here, guys. Thanks for being here.
Big shout out!
Not at all. Thank you for having us here. It's been a pleasure. You'll be getting a thank you card in the mail. Mazel tov on all your success, Jirard.
Hey, go check out our channel, Super Couch Fighters.
Yeah, go check it out.
It's a lot of fun. We're going to be going to EVO this year. I'm sure that I'll be competing. You'll be competing.
Maybe.
I'll be drinking lots of margaritas.
There you go. Now, if you excuse me, let's see if Guile's theme does, in fact, go with everything. Let's just see. Have fun with this, Patrick or Mark, whichever you want to just throw out there.
Yeah.
What are we going to see that's got Guile's
Put it over
theme?
footage of, like, the original Child's Play.
Or a dude making a sandwich, like a delicious sandwich.
Do both.
Dude.
Thank you.